boy, them tires, yeah, boy.
Sure, these sacks shocks. One shot. Hey, welcome back to the garage, everyone. All right, I tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna try to begin reassembly of the front end on our old Corvette today. But I got a couple of things I need to get out of the way before I can start in on that. Number one, son is starting the spring semester in school this week, and his little Pontiac needs an oil change, so I think we're gonna do that first, get that done out of the way, and then we can move on to playtime and get the Corvette put back together. But in the meantime, there's a little bit of an issue. The Cadillac's in the way. So let's go ahead and fire this guy up and get the Pontiac into the shop. All right, so a while back, I contacted a guy on a Cadillac forum, and he set me up with a carburetor for this car. It's off a 72, but we made it work for this car, and he tuned it up for me. And the engine still has a little bit of a issue inside with lifters or valves or something, and causing a little bit of rough running. I used to think it was just at idle, but really it's off idle as well. And so it's not fuel related. This carburetor, and hopefully it won't make a lie out of me, is really good to go. So let me show you what I mean. This car's been sitting here. It's cold now. It's about 45 or 50. It's been sitting here for several days. I'm gonna give it 2 pumps and then hold it down 1/4 of an inch and then go. There you go. What was that, about 2.5 seconds of cranking? Fires right up, and she's sitting there on fast idle. No problem. It's a fantastic carburetor on this car. It's like the old carburetor, the original one. I never could get it to do that. If it sat here for more than a day, it would just crank. Anyway, so all right, let me go ahead and let this thing warm up for a moment. We'll get it out of here and get the Pontiac in. I fired up the Pontiac a minute ago, so it's sitting out there warming up, so the oil will flow well today. This little motor we had put in this Pontiac, this imported motor, it was imported from Japan. Only had 60,000 miles on it, which I reckon over in Japan, it's a little bit different the way they run their cars over there. They don't run them forever like we do here in the States. They get rid of them after a while, and then they just get a new one. At least that's my take on it. If you guys know better, then comment down below. I put a little piece of rubber underneath the end of the ramps because the floor is pretty slick. If you don't do that, they'll just slide right out from underneath the car. And if you don't know anything about putting a car on ramps, get a friend that does and practice. That was a little more aggressive than I normally get. Didn't quite mean it to do it that quickly. But that worked fine. Actually, that one's a little pokey-uppy in the back. Let me back up a little bit. This 2.4 in this Pontiac is a firecracker, man. Let me tell you what. 158 horsepower. I forget what the torque rating is, but off the line, this thing is a little rocket, and the accelerator pedal is really touchy. So let's just put it in neutral and let it. There we go. All right, that'll be fine. We'll get us some chock blocks. And we got the emergency brake on. Got chock blocks. Let's change the oil. .14 millimeter. All right, now the oil filter on these cars is a pain, but I think we can handle it. What a piece of shit this thing is. You got a lot of gall, China, calling this a oil filter wrench. All right, so this El Cheapo Performance Technology oil filter wrench, I had to stick a 5/16 bolt in the end of, in the groove there to keep it from loosening up. It's what a piece of junk. Anyway, so after I put a bolt in it to keep it from backing out, I'm able to tighten my grip on the oil filter here and get it on out of there. All right, we've got us a new Mobil 1. And put a little Earl on the seal there. And yes, I'll make sure the gasket on the old one didn't stick on the engine, even though I've never experienced that before in my entire life, but some people say they have. So I still say it's an urban legend. When you put an oil filter on, they go on hand tight. There's no need for putting them on there with a wrench. Unless, of course, they're just in a really bad spot and you can't get to it, like this one kind of is. And in my mind, hand tight means with all your strength. It is in a rather awkward position, so what we're going to do is put a little tweak with the wrench there. There we go. Oil drain plug. Hand me the torque wrench out of the second from the top drawer. All right, that is 220 inch-pounds. It's just shy. Let's put it on 20. There we go, that's 240. There we go. 20 foot-pounds on that would be more than adequate, I think. All right, we're gonna go with Mobil 1. All right, we got about 4 in there. Got the motor fired back up. Not making any clanking sounds, so that must be a good. Got pressure, no trouble lights. That's pretty right there. All right, well, let's get her flat on the ground. All right, let's see how close we came. You ever notice how some cars, a dipstick, it'll read good on one side of the dipstick and it won't read worth a crap on the other side. So you gotta flip it around to make it look right. We're down just a touch. We need to top it off. In the Japanese, all you get is 2 little dots. If it was an American, it would say, full, add, minimum, do not do this, you're a dummy. It would say things like that. Overfilling by a smidgen will not hurt a thing in the world, as long as you don't go crazy with it. All right, I'm gonna call that good. All right, we fired it up one more time, let it circulate. And we're right at the top mark. Brand new 5W20 and Mobil 1. We're all set for another 3,000 miles. We're gonna baby this engine. We're gonna go every 3,000. You don't need no fancy oil change stickers. All you need is some 3M blue tape. Write your oil interval down and stick it on the inside of your door, and you'll know. 222, 248, 345, 225, 248, so. All right, it's finally time. Pardon the heater noise, but you know what? It's kind of chilly in the shop. And, you know, the heater's nice and warm, and, well, that's just the way things are. We'll start off with the upper control arm. The upper control arm is attached to 2 pressed-in studs. They go through the body of the car, or the frame, rather. I'm going to try to slip it through here this way. And that was pretty uneventful. Got my 2 locking nuts here. Shined up nicely. And let me go ahead and torque those down to spec real quick. And what did I forget? The control arm to frame shims, which I've de-rusted and painted. Got them labeled here. Driver's side, that one goes in the front. Driver's side, this stack goes in the rear. So these will go between the control arm shaft and the frame. And I don't have to take it back off because it's just a little U-shaped thing. You just slip it down in there and no big deal. And yes, I painstakingly kept these things together all this time. Make sure I don't get these stacks confused. Make sure I didn't lose any. But it would be a bear getting it straight again. Uh-oh, some of my paint came off of my stack. But that's what they look like. And it just slips down over the bolt there. Now we can torque it. All right, I got my nuts snugged up there. Got my shims in place. I'm going to get these torqued down. That's 40. I think the spec is 55, something like that. All right, that's 40. Spec's 55. Two different books. Haynes manual says 55. OEM manual says 50, except if you got special YJ8 wheels, it's 80, which I find that hard to believe. So I'm gonna split the difference and go 60. How about that? Let's do that. There we go. Now the upper control arm end nuts that tighten up against the bushings, we won't tighten those up until we get the car on the ground. So, all right, upper control arm in place. All right, I got a neodymium magnet holding that bolt in place because it keeps falling out. All I need is to get that nut started and I'll be home free. I had to get this one started fairly well before I could get over here and get enough leeway over here. This is kind of difficult by yourself with the car in the air. God, this sucks. But I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it this way if it hair lips everybody on Bear Creek. All right, I got them started, thankfully. That daggum Craftsman impact is loud. All right, these two front lower control arm bolts are 70 foot-pounds. Trying to find a way to do this to where it's not quite so awkward. There we go. Let's get an extension for that one. All right. Now the back one is 95. All right, let's I reposition my my breaker bar. I've got it tie wrapped to the underneath the harmonic balancer and press it against the frame. That did it. Lower control arm torqued. Let's move on. I'm gonna put these end caps on. There's a little play there, but that's because these little spacers haven't been forced inward like that. So that'll all change once we get this tightened down. So we've got these big end cap things and 7/16 by 20 bolts and lock washers. So. And of course these won't get tightened down until, see how that moves that in like that? These won't get tightened down until you put the spring pressure on the suspension. So, all right, so that needs to remain free. My microphone, by the way, is charging up, so I'm just using the microphone in front of the camera, so that's the reason why the audio is a little off. I was just impatient. All right, I've got our spring up in there. Got a piece of wood on the jack. And there's a little recess in the lower control arm. Want to make sure you get the end of the spring in there. And I'm using my foot on the jack. See if we can get this thing into place here. Yeah, stick your finger in there and let it get chopped off. Where, man, it's coming to blow outside. I don't know if y'all can hear that wind. Big blow. All right, we're going to use the cell phone, camera, phone, light, something. We're going to use a light. Let's see. I believe we can make that work. I mistakenly put the spring compressor in there first, and I tried to put it up in there. It was a mess. So this is the right way to do it. Just put the spring, just lower it all the way down, set the spring in there, and then bring it up with a jack and a piece of wood. So so right now that leaves us with getting the spindle on. So let's go ahead and put that on next. All right. I reckon I'm doing this right. We'll find out, won't we? Hey, you need a piece of rubber there, boy. Come on now. There we go. All right, let me get a socket wrench on that. Make sure our rubber boot is looking all right. Well, excuse me, polyurethane boot. These precision ball joints from O'Reilly came, that's enough threads, came with a cute little blue boot. Well, I don't want blue boots on my damn ball joints. I want black boots. So the energy suspension kit came with black polyurethane boots, so that's what we got. We need to put that on that next, don't we? The energy suspension kit did not come with polyurethane boots for the upper ball joint. Actually it did, it just doesn't fit. The upper hole's a bit too large, so this upper one is going to be rubber. So anyway, it'll be okay. Now, we just have to get that up to there. Now hopefully this will raise up without raising the car up off of the lift. That would suck. All right, up we go. All right, now let's make sure the hole is going to line up. No, that's not right, fool. You know, it'd be funny if that ball joint end was too big to go in there, which I didn't look. No, there it goes. There we go. This is always nerve-wracking, to me anyway. All right, let's go ahead and get the nut on there. 3/4. All right, well, it's safe now anyway. All right, lower one is 80 foot-pounds. I guess we can go ahead and lower this affair. That's 80. Yeah, upper ball joint stud nut, that'd be 50. It says 80 with special YJ8. You know, I believe I've got the special YJ8 wheels. Because I have the extra wide wheels on this car. I'm guessing, I mean, you know, they're not the narrow ones, so if they're extra wide, I reckon they've got to be, you know, special. So, because my tires are 255/60 R15. I mean, they're fat mofos. I'm talking fat, like Fat Albert, but like, yeah, boy, that tires, yeah, boy. Anyway, you know, guys don't remember Fat Albert, do you? That was a funny show. I'm gonna say 70 on this. Maybe 60, I don't know. I want to play around with it, see what I feel like is comfortable. So the book says 50, special's 80, that's 60. I feel comfortable about that. You know, these are Chinese ball joints and everything. That's 70, 75. And the the hole in the shaft, hell, that ain't gonna do nothing. Just why'd you even put it in there? Because it doesn't even go in with the castle nut. I'll figure something out. We got upper and lower ball joints. I'm wondering if that taper on that ball joint is right. But I'm not gonna wonder very long because I'm gonna call it done. All right, let's go ahead and get this tie rod doohickey on here. Got it all painted up and looking nice. It goes in behind here. Got our hardware all cleaned up. Alright, I was doing that all wrong. We got to back up here. Alright, so I'm a little bit at a standstill here. Up next to, you get the dust shield on, but before we can put that on, let's see. The dust shield goes like that, but you have to have this guy here, right? This guy goes back here, right? I have no idea why that's there. Maybe it quietens things down. But this is old, and I lost the other one. And I was going to replace them, but I forgot to get new ones. So I think what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to make them. Let me do that real quick. All right, we're back. It's the next day. Went over to O'Reilly. Picked up the Cometic brand, C-O-M-E-T-I-C, of gasket material. It's 1/32 thick, which matches what was already on the car. And just used the old one and made a pattern, and which it appears I need to tweak it just a little bit more. Let's try this one. Yep. Let me go trim that, but we'll use this behind our splash shield. Let me go trim this real quick. This needs a little bit of a tweak. I don't want to stretch it. Take out the flat spot there. So the young guy behind the counter at O'Reilly, I say, man, I need some gasket making material. Oh, it's an aisle 4. And I walk over there. I don't see it. They go, here it is. It's on the right. Gasket maker. And I said, no, man. I want gasket making material, not gasket maker adhesive, you know. And gives me a funny look. I don't think we have anything like that. I said, yes, you do. You're just not familiar with it. He went and got one of his buddies who knew where it was. You know, just because somebody's not familiar with something, you know, some of these young guys, they don't know everything there is in the store. So don't get bent out of shape, you know, if they ask you what model car it is, you know, or something like that. Us old guys have to be a little more patient. It's still a little too tight. I don't want to stretch it. Good as new. Yeah, boy. Need some bolts. Now, one of these bolts is shorter than the other, for obvious reasons. Let's see. This is going to be kind of a fiasco here. Let's try to avoid that. We're going to do long bolt first. Tie rod bracket. There we go. And then we're going to do, the shorter bolt goes over there. There we go. Couple of nuts. Not sure where the torque rating is on this. Pretty substantial bolt and nut, so probably at least 75, I would think. Let me go get my socket. Well, let's get everything in place before we start tightening stuff down. What am I doing wrong? There's a gap. What am I missing? I'm missing something. And he just keeps on screwing up by the numbers. Screwing up by the numbers every day. 'Cause he can't remember how the car goes back together. Well, we'll get it eventually. See, the disc brake bracket is a highly, highly, highly important part of an automobile. And, you know, see how well that works now when you have the stuff, you know, in the proper orientation. But somebody was screaming at the computer screen there for a little bit. Hey, I know. Let's get the microphone off of the charger and actually use it. (15/16). A little rattly. All right, 15/16 I reckon is what it is. And I haven't torqued anything down just yet. I just still want to make sure I don't screw anything up before we torque it down. All right, let's go for 75 foot-pounds on these two bolts here. On these two nuts here. That'd probably be all right. What do you think? I can't find it in the book. If you guys know what the proper torque setting is for these two bolts, let me know. And I will torque them. That one's 70. I got them all at 75. Probably good. This has got some little French lock clips here. And so you fold those over. It keeps that in place. So, but so far so good, right? Looks pretty good. All right, let's go with a sack shock. Put that on next. What do you think? I need the two bolts that go into the bottom. I'm not entirely sure these sack shocks are going to work. The flange here, I don't think the holes are far enough apart. They might be. These are a little wider, and it looks like the witness marks of the bolts were on the outer edges of the shock. I'm not entirely sure that's going to work. Let me get a couple of bolts. In lieu of reinstalling the shock, this is just to simply see if the shock is going to be wide enough, the flange. And it is not. It is not wide. Fail! Rock Auto, fail! It will not work. Let me see if I've passed my return limit for these shocks. And see how that goes. So these are either going back or they're going on eBay, one or the other. Okay, so we got a shock fail. No big deal, I'll return them. I don't think it's been that long since I bought those. So I should be able to return those. I'll get on the computer and take a look at that here in a little bit. So what can we do here? So here's the score. I don't want to install the steering system until I get the engine out. So what I'm going to do is get the steering knuckle, get this whole affair done on both sides, and get a couple of wheels on this car so we can drop this car onto the ground and pull that engine out. At this point, what I'm going to do is go ahead and do the other side off camera, and then next thing you'll see is reinstallation of the front sway bar. And then once we've accomplished that, we'll take the motor out. Now the motor is just hanging in there, barely. Just a couple of bolts on the engine mounts. That's the reason I got the jack underneath it. So all I've got to do is get the car on the ground and get the cherry picker over here, get those bolts out, and zip, out it comes. I'm going to go ahead and work on the other side. All right, it's the next weekend. Several days later, and I got the passenger side done. Well, not done. It's got the spring in, the control arms in, except for the end, these end nuts and bolts, they'll get tightened up once we get the car on the ground. Also, I got some new Monroe OE Spectrum shocks. Will be here today sometime. This is Saturday, the 12th or the 13th. I can't recall. Anyway, but up next, let's go ahead and get the sway bar in. I got some wire on the supports here, and I'm just going to use that to hold it up there, and just to make life a little easier. There we go. How about that? I think we'll go ahead and put the we'll try to put the end links in next. All right, I've got energy suspension end link bushing kit with hardware. Part is 9.8120G. There we go. All right, I got my hardware laid out here on my little stool next to me. Let's see if we can make this happen. You got to hold your mouth just right, put these end links together, and get all the pieces in the right order. Bolt, cup washer, bushing. The little end goes up under there. Right? Now, up next we have another bushing. Goes in there like that. Then we have another cup washer, faces the bushing, like the dome side, goes up like that. Then you got a sleeve. Then you got another cup washer. The dome side be like, be like that on this side. Then you got another bushing. The little side pokes up. Finally, we get to put the sway bar on, hopefully. Now we have another bushing. Little end goes towards the sway bar. Another cup washer with the dome side up. Finally, we have a nylon lock nut. Easy peasy. I'm gonna go do the other side, and then we're gonna torque this up to spec. All right, so up next, we're gonna go ahead with the energy suspension 9.5112G. These are polyurethane sway bar bushings, and this is what they look like. As you can see, they're pretty doggone big, because that is a really large sway bar. So I think what I'm gonna do here is the same thing I did on the rear end. Instead of just putting this up here like this, right? Because I don't really like the way that looks. It looks it doesn't look factory. All right, I think I'm going to go with the bracket inside of a bracket thing here. The bushing is too tall. The dimension between the flat edge and the hole is different from the stock one. It doesn't seem to fit up inside the stock bracket real well. So to keep things working well, we're going to do what we did on the rear end. We're going to go ahead with the aftermarket bracket. Right? And we're going to go ahead and put the OEM bracket on top of it to retain the stock look, just because that's what I want to do. Let me get a little grease on the action here. The Energy Suspension provides you a little tub of, I don't know what kind of grease this is, but man, it is like super, super gooey. I mean, just, it's off the hook gooey. But I'm just going to smear a little bit in there to, you know, keep things from, just make things work well with one another, you know. Sorry about the heater. It's cold outside. It's cold outside, baby. I'm going to grease this part here too. That old gooey grease will probably just hold that right up there like that. Let me show you what I'm talking about. That is like the gooeyest grease I've ever seen. That's pretty cool. We're going to put some in the stock bracket too. It's going to take me a little bit of finagling to get this thing up here, I believe. And where's my bolts? This aftermarket bushing is a little bit, just a smidgen wider than the stock bracket. But I believe we got it on there. All right, we got those started. Let me go ahead and get the other two on the other side started, and I'll be right back. We got her up there. I don't know what the torque is on these, but not a whole lot. These are basically like those self-tapping body bolts. And they, you know, they lock themselves really. They got a built-in washer on the head and all that. So if you're curious, the factory service manual says torque these to 126 inch-pounds. And these guys right here are 18 foot-pounds. So let me go ahead and torque these down real quick. And we are at 18 foot-pounds on both sides. One anti-roll bar or sway bar or whatever you want to call it, stabilization bar, installed. Now, if only my shocks would arrive in the mail, we can put them in. All right, here we are. Getting ready to put some brakes on this car. The driver's side caliper, I noticed that a couple of threads down about halfway into the bore on the caliper, a couple of the threads were kind of like, well, missing really. I got to looking at it, I was like, gee whiz, do I need to buy another caliper or what? Then I got to thinking about it. You know, those are remanufactured Delco Moraine from who knows when. And I bought them at, probably got them at O'Reilly years ago. Those threads were probably boogered up when I bought them. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and run it. And I mean, it's just like, you know, one and a half threads about halfway down in the bore on that, in one hole that are not quite right. So I'm not gonna worry about it too much. I'll worry about it a little bit. But right now I've already packed the inner bearing, and that was a really exciting process. And let's go ahead and get an inner seal installed. Might as well just use the biggest one we got to drive this rascal in. That'll work. Oh, this is exciting video. I know people have watched others drive seals in on countless occasions, but I figure one more can't hurt. Yes, I used gloves when I packed the bearing. So, there's that. These seals, these inner seals are from Master Pro from O'Reilly. These are made in Taiwan. They look pretty good, actually. I was trying to find some good ones. Well, you know, it's kind of hard to find a good deal on them. They either want $20. I'm not paying $20 for a seal. I'm just not going to do it. One shot. Done. Let's move on to the other side. Well, the other side, clearly you can't put the bearing in until you put the hub on. So we have got some items to clean up. There's the castle nut. There is the brake hose clip, thrust washer, and the cap. These are all original parts. And in this baggie is stuff I'm not going to use, like these little things that held the original steering system onto the car. That's not going to go back on the car. Old castle nuts and what have you is about all we got left in the original parts bag. All right, let me clean up these little items here, and then we'll continue on. All right, time to go back on the car. Don't give me a hard time now. There we go. Newsflash, we need a bearing. Now you just stay right there. There's our thrust washer and our castle nut. All right, let me check the book on how tight to get that. I believe the end plate is supposed to be like 1,000th, something like that. I'll be right back. All right, we're gonna go to 12 foot-pounds while we're spinning here. And then we're gonna back off. Let me go get a cotter pin. And we're gonna back off. Well, actually, I ended up right in the middle there. I could just put it there, but you're not supposed to do that. We're gonna back off one flat. And we'll go right there. Now, I think what you want is about 1,000th on the end plate, somewhere in that neighborhood. That's nice. I kind of dread getting the dial indicator out, but I guess I'm going to. This is a little ungainly, so trying to get the best observation I can. So that's 77 or 78. I say, where is it sitting right now? 78. That's 79. That's 77 and a half. That's 79. I'm going to call that one about 1,000th or maybe 1.5, something like that. About 1.5. I'm going to call it good. Let's put the cap on and move on to the other side. We have to tighten up our cotter pin here. That ought to do it. Cleaned up the cap. Just had a mild layer of surface rust on it. And I'm not going to paint it. I'll just smear a little grease on it and it'll be fine. Ooh, man, that's like butter. This is so nice. That is just, wow. That is super duper nice. It's like nothing. You can't hear anything, except for my tinnitus, but anyway, I'll get over it. All right, let's go ahead and get the brake caliper on next. All right, let's go ahead and get our brake caliper on next. Let's see. Where's the hole? There it is. These older calipers on these Vettes don't have those through bolts like these modern ones do. You just have these two great big old honking, I guess they're 7/16 by 20 bolts. Let me get a socket wrench and tighten it up. Now let's see. Let me take care of that cotter pin right there. There we go. That's good enough. That way it'll rattle. Drive you bonkers when you're driving. What's next? Brake lines next. All right, so I've got the brake hose screwed in there lightly. A little tip on brand new brake hoses. When you put them in, you want to tighten them and then back off. Tighten them and then go a little more, back off again. Do it probably about 3 times. Tighten and then go a little more, and then you're done. And what you're doing is you're creating a witness mark on those brand new fittings. Otherwise, it'll probably leak on you. I see a lot of people on YouTube do this, and they bitch about the compression lines leaking, and they never can get it right. Well, this is how you do it right out of the gate. Now, this has already been on here, so I don't have to do all that. So I'm just gonna snug it up, and we'll call it done. Let me do the let's get the other end attached now. All right, got some tape around the end of my line here. Let's get that off of there. And let's go ahead and get this line on here. So let's go ahead and start the threads. There we go, first. Then we'll put our clip on. And we're going to put our 3/8 inch flare nut wrench on there. These hard lines are original to the car. I have no reason to change them. They're not rusted, and they were working fine before. So now same drill with this, right? If it was brand new, tighten it, back off, tighten it a little more, back off, so on and so forth. Do it about 3 times, and then you're done. And now this, I'm just gonna, that should be good. And do it too tight, you're gonna redo brake lines. But if you don't do it tight enough, all you gotta do is leak check. And if it leaks, tighten it a little more. All right, brake line attached. All right, there you go. The driver's side is pretty much done, I reckon. I just need to put the steering back together, but I'm not gonna do that until I pull the motor out. These lines are not brand new. They've been on there about 10 years, but the car didn't have a whole lot of miles on them, so they're fine. I'm not done. I gotta put cotter pins up in these ball joints, so I need to go ahead and do that. Got my brake caliper installed, got our sway bar installed. I'm digging it, man. It's looking good, boy. Well, all right, folks, I think I'm going to leave this video right here because late yesterday evening, after I was wrapping up working on this old Corvette, I began to start to not feel too good, and things started to fall off a cliff. And this morning, I went to the clinic and tested positive for the big C. So I've got some good drugs floating around in my system right now. But I'm gonna have to lay off on working on cars for a few days. Plus my stupid shock absorbers are not in the mail yet. I guess since it's a holiday weekend, they decided, those can wait. So, and I don't blame them. So in a couple of days, we'll get our shocks in the mail. We'll lower the car on the ground and pull the engine out, put it back in the air. And I think after that, we'll go ahead and put the steering linkages in, the tie rods, and the center link. And we'll get that all squared away. I don't have the new power steering gearbox in the mail just yet, but that'll be in a few weeks. But I think once I have this front end squared away, we can go ahead and start on the engine, I believe. So, so stay tuned for that. Hey, I appreciate you guys stopping by the channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to be notified whenever I release a new video, don't forget to click that little bell down below. You guys have a good one, and remember to enjoy restoring your classic C3 Corvette and stay well in the process.